You're listening to the Secure Dad Podcast. Discover ways to protect yourself and your family at home, in public, and online. Welcome, friend. I'm Andy Murphy, the creator of the Secure Dad. This podcast serves to help people become proactive in their safety. The information I share on this podcast is for general information purposes only. My goal is to empower you to make safer decisions for yourself and your family, because our safety is our own responsibility. Today we're going to be talking about everyday situational awareness tips that we can all use. I'll go over a few tricks that I use every day to help make myself and my family safer. All of that and more ahead on the Secure Dad Podcast. In 2023, there were more than 1 million reports of identity theft in America. New findings from the FTC say that identity thieves were using real information with either an existing credit card or applying for a new one. How did they get this information? Well, there's a lot of ways, but one way is to buy it. Yes, scammers can buy your personal information from data brokers and use it to impersonate you. And buying private data from these sites is completely legal. Delete Me searches the internet for your private data that's being sold. Then they delete it. Not just once, they keep looking for it. Go to joindeleteme.com/dad. There you can get 20% off our privacy plan when using the code DAD at checkout. Keep your data out of the hands of scammers and thieves with help from Delete Me. See why I find Delete Me essential to my privacy at joindeleteme.com/dad and use promo code DAD to get 20% off today. Delete Me is a sponsor of the Secure Dad Podcast. Situational awareness brings several important benefits to the average person and their daily lives, contributing to our overall sense of safety, security, and well-being. In a moment, I'm going to go over some tips that I use every day to keep myself and my family safe. But before we get going, let's take a look at what exactly situational awareness is. As a layman, I define situational awareness as the ability to understand the elements of an environment and how it can affect your personal safety. Overall, situational awareness is a vast study in human behavior, and it is absolutely fascinating. The reason that situational awareness is important is because we can read people, places, and vibes to draw reasonable conclusions about what's going on, and that's going to help us understand if we're in danger. And if we are in danger, we can determine what our best course of action really is. Everybody has the ability to understand what's going on around them, but very few of us are actually going to fully embrace it. So my first tip for everyday situational awareness is about not sitting with your back to the door in public. But hold on, this is not what you think. For years, my spider sense tingled when I would sit down at a restaurant. And if I didn't sit where I could see the front door, then I just felt off. Like I didn't enjoy being there. It was weird. I would make up reasons to turn around and look at the door. There was this primal compulsion to know what was coming and going. If nothing else, I needed to be able to see the front door to spot trouble before it started. But the issue is, trouble does not always come from the front door. In an interview with Greg Williams and Brian Marin of Arcadia Cognerati, Greg explained to me that danger can come from anywhere in a restaurant. Case in point, in my area a few years ago, two fast food co-workers got into a heated argument. One left and then retrieved a weapon from his car and fatally shot the other. If I had been only focused on the front door, then I might have missed the fatal encounter that was developing in the kitchen. Instead of only focusing on the front door as a potential point of danger, open up your thinking to see the entire restaurant. Look at the entire environment. There could be a disagreement at the register. Two meatheads could get drunk in the bar and start a fist fight, or there could be a fire in the kitchen. So put yourself where you can see more than just that front door and open yourself up to see what's really going on. Next, I want to talk about how the time of day changes environments and how people behave in them. As humans, we want to feel safe and comfortable where we are. Of course, there are times and places when we don't feel that way. Many times we work to quiet our intuition by deeming the location as safe all the time. It was safe yesterday, it'll be safe today. That's what we think. What we may not factor in is how the time of day affects locations. For example, At 9 a.m. on a Tuesday morning at a city park, it may be full of parents letting their toddlers play, and this is a relatively safe time to be in this location. At 9 p.m. that same day, the park is dark and creates the right circumstances for illegal activity. Then at 9 a.m. on Saturday, the same park could be crowded with protesters who are about to march on City Hall. The location has not changed, but how people use it has. Time influences how people act in environments. Don't always assume that a place is safe all the time. Keep your mind open to factors beyond your experience when planning a trip or thinking about where you go. The takeaway is that the park is safe, but only at certain times of the day. Now let's discuss how multitasking is a myth. This is going to step on some toes, but we're going to learn together, and you'll find that you actually are good at tasks, just not multitasks. Contrary to popular belief, true multitasking is not possible with the human brain. While it may seem like we're juggling multiple tasks at one time, in reality, our brains are more like rapid switchers. They focus on one task at a time and then quickly shift to another. We are not doing two activities at once. We are simply starting and stopping those tasks rapidly. Some of us may be good at it, others not so much. With this in mind, our personal safety cannot be left to the myth of multitasking. We have to give our brains ample time and power to see what's really going on in our environment. Looking at our smartphones will switch our brains to focusing on our email, not the lone man who just walked in a trench coat on a 98-degree sunny day. We will miss the anomalies in the baseline. Many times criminals look for a distracted person on their smartphone and target them for a robbery. Even they know you're not paying attention, and their success rate will be much higher with you because you're distracted. This new knowledge can help you prioritize your behavior in public. Give your brain every chance you can to keep you safe. Don't bet your safety to multitasking. The last tip I want to leave you with for now is that you're not always faced with the worst case scenario. That's big for me to say. That's big for me to say. When I first started studying situational awareness, my mind would automatically rush to the worst case scenario. Generally, that's just how my brain works. That's how I make decisions. That's me. That's just me. I feel that this is typical for many people who are starting to learn situational awareness and understanding human behavior. We automatically just want to jump to the worst thing that's going to happen so that we can be prepared for it. Situational awareness is not paranoia, even though it may feel like that in the beginning. During a 3-day intensive training course with Greg Williams and Brian Marin, I learned the distinct difference between the most likely course of action and the most dangerous course of action. When determining the intent of a person in a developing situation, it's important not to rush to conclusions. More information is always a good thing as long as it doesn't prohibit you from action, so there's a balance. Filtering your observations through what is most likely going to happen versus the worst case scenario can help you make better observations and draw better conclusions for action. Don't assume that you know everything and that everywhere you go an active shooter situation is brewing, because it's not. That's very, very rare. Filter your observations and take the perspective of others to make the determination of what's really going on and if it really affects you. And as always, situational awareness will not save your life. It won't. Action will save your life. Seeing a punch coming before it's thrown won't keep you from a broken nose. Your decision to move out of the way will save your nose. You can see all the red flags in the world, but unless you decide to save yourself, it doesn't matter. So take the tips from this episode and put them into practice today. I've written a pretty in-depth article on this topic that goes over even more situational awareness tips, so I highly recommend that you take time to go over it, and there's a link for you in the show notes. Also, I have mentioned Greg and Brian from Arcadia Cognerati in this episode. If you want to know more about them, you can check out their new podcast, which is entitled The Human Behavior Podcast. It's available wherever you're listening to this one. Well, that wraps up today's episode. Thank you, friend, for listening. Take back your privacy and personal data with help from Delete Me. Get 20% off our privacy plan when using the code DAD at checkout. There's a link in today's show notes. If you'd like for your child to have a smartphone, but not access to the whole internet, consider a TrueMe phone. My family uses one all the time. Click on the link in the show notes and use the code TheSecureDad at checkout for $50 off a phone of your choice. The Secure Dad is more than just a podcast. You can follow me on Instagram and X with the username TheSecureDad. Also, there's tons of free stuff on my website for you. Head on over to thesecuredad.com to find out more. I'm Andy Murphy, reminding you that our safety is our own responsibility.